Marriage is about affection, enjoying each other's company, and above all, godliness. Do you know how to spice up your marriage to make it the real deal and not an ordeal? Stay tuned for today's lesson on the Marriage Classroom to learn about the measure you can put in place for you to enjoy your marriage.
Welcome again to today's class, the Marriage Classroom. I believe that we are learning and we've continued to learn. And we will continue to learn, okay?
Yes.
A lot. And maybe briefly a recap. Anyone who can remind us what we learned in the last class?
Yes.
George.
We were looking at the alphabets of marriage. We started by alphabet A.
Alphabet A, which we said can mean many verbs or many action verbs. One of them being appreciate. And what does that mean to appreciate?
Mtu akikufanyia jambo mzuri, unamwambia ni asante, si kunyamaza tu.
Okay, good. Another one?
Accept.
Accept. That means?
You are able to accept whatever your spouse or your husband is doing to you.
Okay. You seem to be like you're comfortable with whatever
yes, you're comfortable.
He is or she is.
Yes.
You're even making room for it so
yes.
that the whole person is accepted. Yes, Winnie?
Yes, we also learned about the 5 languages of love. And I'll just mention two that zilinigusa zaidi. Ya kwanza ilikuwa zawadi ama gifts. Ya pili ilikuwa spending quality time together.
That shows that is your language of love. Samuel?
Naongezea hapo ya tatu, physical touch.
Yeah?
Physical touch.
True, touch. Yeah, gutia modo. You know, you say. I know there are those who love that song. Even as much as it is sung, I know they love that gutia modo. Okay, for the viewers it is touch somebody and tell the person you love them. And I think there are those people who always know, when I'm touched, I feel appreciated. Now we move on to the other alphabet of love, and so we are at letter B. So, and from the word B, anyone who can tell us, we have many action verbs. Remember we said action, positive verbs. There can be so many. Like break your mate. But we said no negative. It should be positive. Yes, I know for the notice students, they can give that one. Okay, so give me positive. We can start with Winnie.
Believe.
Oh, believe. A nice one. Believe. We may not write all of them, but yes, let me get from somewhere.
Can I say with Kiswahili?
Sawa.
Burudisha.
Burudisha. Oh, burudisha. A nice one. Tuseme ingine, Rose?
You have to be brave in your marriage.
Be brave. Okay. We have Grace?
You bank in your marriage.
Bank in your marriage. Wow, good ones. Aston?
Beautify your spouse.
Wow.
Beautify.
Yes. Nice one. Moses?
Bless.
Oh, nice one. Bless. Now, my student who is next to me, you are only laughing. Give me one.
You should bond.
Board. Wow. Yeah, nice one. To board. I think we quite have
one. You buy things. You buy things.
Buy.
Yes.
Okay. That's a nice one.
You balance.
Balance. Wow. That's all. All those are very good, and I believe that we can have as many good positive verbs. And you can see, if we just did a little bit more, in what we are saying, put more effort in your marriage, okay? Just like though we are putting more effort to get those B words, that is the same way it will work. Because I believe sometimes we just give up, or we don't want just to try harder, okay? We say a little harder. So just like though you've gotten so many of those, B is believe. And I want us to look at one of them, which I've taken to be befriend. Now that's now among the many B's that are there. I want to use that one today. Befriend. What does it mean to befriend somebody?
Making your spouse to be the closest person to you, or to be a friend to you.
Yes, indeed, the closest person. I know we talk about the next of kin. It's not only next of kin when it comes to inheritance or taking what maybe you may not later need. But I think it is more about that close person, the closest person you can be. Beyond our parents and our friends and our sisters and brothers, remember this person you chose. So what do you make her or him a friend? Okay? Yes. And when the Bible says there is a friend, a man who is friendly must show himself friendly. Where is that? In the scripture? Somebody will get for us. But a man who has friends must show himself friendly. But there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. I pray that your spouse will be a friend who sticks closer than a brother. But we can look at ways of how to befriend, how to be friends with our spouses. What? Yes, Judge?
Making your spouse you are confident.
That means you're sharing yourself. It's more like you're giving more information than you give to the others. Yes. They already have what is secret to you. That's a good one. Yes. A friend keeps your secrets, yeah?
Spending time with your spouse.
Correct. We say spending quality time with. You can't have a friend who you only don't even meet or even talk. Okay? Yes, Grace.
Being open.
Open.
To your spouse.
That means nothing hidden.
Nothing.
If it's you should be closer than a brother, should have your innermost or intimate details. Yes, that is Joseph.
Yeah, be faithful to your spouse.
Yes, we talk about being faithful. That's how you get also a friend who is faithful, or someone who is faithful to you is a friend. You will lose friends when they become unfaithful. Yes. Yeah. Somebody. Yeah. Let's give it first to.
Yes, on this aspect of being open and making one confident, there's also that aspect of being vulnerable to your spouse.
Yes.
The question I wanted to ask, and this has come from interactions I've had, to what extent should you be vulnerable to your spouse? Because in our African setup, and in our African culture, we are being told that kama mwanaume usionyeshe bibi yako shida zote zenye uko nazo, zingine deal nazo kama mwanaume. When you go to tell her that you are fired from your job, ama you are being harassed by your boss, you are exposing your weakness as a man. So to what extent should being vulnerable, can it affect the friendship if you are too vulnerable to your spouse?
I think there's I like the way you are saying the African man. But I realize that we are talking about the concept right now. What are we using as our way of reference? If we say, it's not even only African, you may find we are here different communities, different cultural settings. What will happen, I would say, a man does not do this, a woman does not do this. But I think we are talking about what does the Bible expect us to how to behave? Because I believe there is the African part, like we say, man does not cry. But does it really help when you find somebody who is grieving inside and then later breaks down because he can't express his grief? So I think there are some things we need to challenge and ask ourselves. Is the vulnerability, it's not like where you pour everything to the person, but I believe it's, as we were saying, it's where you grow in that friendship. Even a friend which we met today, I can't just try to tell him, unajua jana nilichapwa. I don't start there. There's a way we grow into that friendship until the fact that I can be able to share something quite intimate. So I believe even by the time you go and tell your wife that I was fired today, or I felt so bad, my boss shouted at me. It's like, they will support. And that brings me to one of the things that I wanted to explain when it comes to befriending, the word empathize. 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 To empathize. What is empathy? Empathy is where you feel with, not feel for. Feel for is sympathy. Oh yeah, you feel, by the way, I don't think I would want to be you. But it's like, when you talk about empathy is, I feel you. You come and tell me how hard it was and how your boss treated you. I don't say, kama ningekuwa wewe. That is not empathy. You don't keep telling people, kama ni mimi, siwezi ambiwa hivyo. That is wrong. It is you get the view. How did they feel? What did it mean to be shouted at before the other people? And that is empathy. And when you are afraid to your mate, you do not criticize them. You do not, not always see that they are very weak. It is where you feel with them. And if possible, if they are able to ask you, you can ask them, you can help them to know how they could have done if they ask you, but not give you information. Maybe somebody else?
Not really somebody else, but in line with what Aston has just said.
Yes.
Experiences of people. And I have a friend who got sacked from his job. And for 4 months, he was daily dressing up in the morning as if he's actually going to the job, while he was simply going to town to, sometimes in the public, in the what do you call it? Public square, the gardens, to just sit there and think. Well, eventually he came up with an idea of business and is doing fine in the business. But for 4 months, the wife never knew that he has actually been sacked. So we are saying, and probably it is the issue of fearing, quote unquote, they will think that I'm weak, or she will think that I'm not doing enough, or something like that. Yes. And for provisions, he actually was using his savings, for all those 4 months.
To provide. But now the issue is this. As you can see, if there were you friends, because this is what we are talking about, being friends. Yes. Would you fear to tell your friend when you are in a need?
No.
Sometimes they even know when we need money, we go to our friends, isn't it? Because we know when we tell them we are broke, they can help us. Yes. Now, if you cannot tell your spouse that you have lost a job, what is your fear? There could be something. There was no cultivation of what? Friendship. Yes. I can see George had.
I just want to maybe to add something on what they have said. When your spouse becomes your best friend, actually from the definition of marriage and the purposes as to why we marry, we need companionship.
Yes, yes.
Now, she is a helper for better for us. And this help is both spiritual, psychological, emotional. So I believe that if my wife is my best friend, by telling her what I am going through, she will either pray for me, help me out, because I may be short of ideas in what I'm going to do after I'm fired. And therefore, I believe that befriending your spouse would really build a good emotional life for both of us. Because I may go as my brother has said, and you just hide your problems and you be going out every morning. And therefore, her expectations will be just the way they were when I had a job.
And I don't think it's going to help you or the family if she comes to discover that 4 months, we say, you mean you don't trust me? I mean, you can't tell me? No, even what you are trying to prevent. I don't know whether you realize that people hide the truth from you because they fear your reaction. When you come to know about it, it's even worse.
It's true, yeah. It brings a mistrust.
Yes, a mistrust. There was a word from Moses. I don't know whether...
Yeah, not related to this.
Oh.
Yeah, not related to empathy.
Can I give
Finish first.
Winnie?
Mine is
Because
related,
it's rated, yeah.
Because I think the reason why even we're having this particular class and picking up from what we had from the previous classes is about how you're able to move from ordeal, ideal, and making our marriages to be real, so that in a situation where you cannot share with your spouse any issue, any problem, and you feel ashamed so that you have to conceal, then maybe perhaps that one we need to sit and think, what is the reason why I'm not able to share that particular problem or issue, and then I work backwards. How do I ensure that I'm able to come open to her? And just like what you also said, husband and wife, you're able to share your own body, your nakedness, that you cannot share with anyone else, and you're not ashamed of it. So that if you're not ashamed of your own bodies, and you find yourself you're ashamed of this particular incident or issue, then I think for me, we need to, or someone or that particular couple, you need to work backwards. How do you come back to real, meaning that there's some fakeness or some issues that are still not resolved.
Thank you for all that concerning. I believe we are getting to understand that when we befriend our spouses, it helps even in openness and growth. Moses, you had something on the same on how to befriend?
Oh yes, on how to befriend. I think one part we sometimes forget is to have fun. With our spouses, to play and laugh and joke and do something exciting. When we are caught up in the cycle of work and bringing up children and projects, we forget to take walks, to crack jokes, to watch a movie together, to the sweeter side of life. So having fun is very important as part of befriending.
And it can be whichever way. You know, somebody said when you get the, what do you call it, is the funny bone of somebody. Okay. What makes, just like the way you are learning how to express appreciation with the 5 languages of love, are you able, as Moses is saying, to know what really would make your wife laugh or your husband laugh? What really tickles her? You know, whether it is the feet, like King Julian. King Julian doesn't like being touched the feet. So I don't know whether it's a feet or whether it is you wearing funny things and saying something. But as he says, let there be time for play together. Let be also a time that you joke together and even have fun. Which games? I don't know how many of us have ever tried to do just a simple game, snakes and the ladder, which you don't even have to use a lot of, because even a kid 1 year can defeat you. A whole doctor, Moses, you realize, because they just throw in the dice and then you find either you climb the ladder or you are swallowed by the snake, and it's all fun. Those are some of the things that we can plan to spend time together. One, you know, like now somebody is maybe good in football, go and be the cheerleading squad, or you are there telling him, yes, hit it. My husband loves volleyball, and sometimes I have loved just seeing. I would love him to see him play or cheer, but I'm not really. I think you need a hujuma. I can't play because the net. Even though I wanted, unless the ball gets under the net, I can't do spike. A booster. Before I boost, somebody has hit it on top of my head. Okay. And so I believe that what we need to do is let's endeavor to be the best friend that of our spouse. In fact, we say be the friend you want him to be. Yes. And in that way, then you know very well you are going to be you are learning the ABC, or not the ABC, we say the alphabet of marriage. Yeah. So the homework is go and think of ways and many other ways that are unique in your family, how you can be friends with your spouse. A question.
I think you quoted a verse and you told us to
Yes, thank you.
It is in the
Proverbs.
book of Proverbs 18, verse 24.
Yes, I knew it was 18, but the verse, yes, it reads.
It says, a man who has friend must himself be friendly.
Yes.
But there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother.
So if you want to be a friend or to be with friends, make sure yourself you are the best friend. And that's what we add the class with.
Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm, for love is as strong as death, jealousy as cruel as the grave. Its flames are flames of fire, a most vehement flame. Many waters cannot quench love, nor can floods drown it. If a man would give for love all the wealth of his house, it would be utterly despised. In today's discussion during the break,
I think from the last class, we were talking about the ways of befriending our spouses. And I realized the list was quite long and there were all these colorful and good ways of befriending our spouses. But let's be realistic, let the truth be told. I know there are many spouses, some spouses, you find just an issue of, you are my husband, you're my wife. Wewe ni mama watoto, mama wa kwangu. And that element of, wewe ni rafiki yangu, does not come up. And so what are these hindrances? Yeah, because for me, I would really like to understand. What are some of these hindrances that perhaps may make some of these spouses not able to befriend each other?
I think I would say two. One of them is the aspect of culture. Some of us have been brought up in a culture whereby your wife is not your friend. Your husband is not your friend. They're just exactly what you have said. He's the mother of your children. He's basically the person who cooks for you, the person who actually, if it's the husband, brings the money home or whatever the provisions, is a provider. And there is no issue of friendship per se, the way we see it. And maybe some of us, we came from families whereby once the father arrives home, even the children scatter. Because there was nothing like a friendly atmosphere. So the cultural upbringing, the things that we are even told maybe when we are getting married, from our cultural setup. So that is one of the things that I would want to say is actually a hindrance on the issue of friendship. Another one is kind of fear. If I overexpose myself, and that is why they retain secrets. If I overexpose myself to this man or to this lady, probably I will lose the respect or the way she regards me. I'm the strong man of the family. And that is why men were cultured not even to cry. While deep down within themselves, they are actually, ni vile tu alikuwa akisema ya kwamba machozi ya mwanaume inateremka tumbo. Mpaka kwa viatu. So basically I think it's cultural bringing, and sometimes it's some kind of fear of losing it. If at all you go to, you are so vulnerable to your spouse.
Yes, okay. If I may also add on what I think is a hindrance to friendship. I think the societal demands, the lifestyle that we live, and sometimes we cannot really avoid it. You find a couple, they got married in their early 20s or 30s. One person is posted in Kapedo, the other one works in Juba, South Sudan. They probably have to spend only a month or a few weeks in a year together because of the demands of work. And this lifestyle goes on for a long time. When probably children come, of course, children have a way of also demanding the time of their parents. So they interfere with the time which you can spend together. By the time this couple can actually have quality time together, they are retired. Did this couple have time to befriend each other? So you retire and you actually realize, oh, kumbe, so this is my wife. And that is when you have retired. That is when the first time you are actually spending 24 hours together with this person. So I think these societal demands also affect the ability of couples befriending each other.
And I want to say something concerning that. You find in many cases, whereby particularly when the father was the provider, working from far, and then comes home after retirement, actually they end up being strangers to everybody. Strangers to their spouses, strangers to their children, strangers to everybody. And that is why it brings about the aspect of even when we are working from far. Within that, because in every job you get at least a month's leave. During that leave, or whenever you come home, maybe at the end of the month, I think it is important for somebody to try and be friends at that particular time. Sio kuja kuuliza ngombe mume, it's like you are commanding everybody around. And therefore, there's distance between you and the children and the spouse actually becomes, in fact, they are happy when you're out there working, sending the money, than when you are at home.
And that has also been indicated in some of these cases. If when people have been married for 40 years, and then after the 40 years, you're wondering why there's that divorce. I think most of the time you'll find they were not staying together. So this person has retired. As a result of the retirement, comes home and you cannot stay together. And I think then that answers, perhaps even for us as spouses, do you have to select, even if you're working from far, because I think sometimes economical demands, you can't help it. But just as Mwalimu said, it's very intentional. It's a sacrifice. How will you ensure that you'll be coming away from Juba so that you don't find yourself making millions at the expense of your family? By the time you come to this home with your millions, the family is broken. The family cannot interact with you. So for me, I think then it's an intentional decision amongst ourselves that I have to ensure that I am there for my husband so that there'll never be that disconnect. And I think perhaps even when you're far, nowadays you can even create friendship even on call, phone call, virtually. Nowadays even now through Corona, we are able to know that you can even interact virtually. You talk to each other, you catch up, so that even when you meet physically, there'll be somewhere to continue as opposed to starting afresh.
But at the same time, we are failing to befriending because nowadays we have taken offices to the house, to our homes. You are employed, he's employed. You have your laptop in the house. When you go home at 5, you are on your table, he's on his table, doing your jobs. You don't have time together. Tumetoa ofisi kwa ofisi, tumezileta nyumbani. Unapata ya kwamba tumefikisha hapo saa 9, hakuna mwenye ameongea na mwingine, zote tunaongea na mashini, zote labda pengine tunaongea na mambo zingine. Pia simu zimefanya tusikue befriending. Kwa sababu unapata ya kwamba mimi nimeingia kwa nyumba, niko kwa simu yangu, niko pale kwa kakona kangu. Hata kwanza nina chat na watu wengine na tuko kwa nyumba na mume wangu. So tunakosa kuwa na ule wakati wetu. Kwa sababu mambo yote tunayafanya kwa simu. Tunakosa kupata, hatuna ule upendo kwa nyumba. Because tumeingiza mambo yote kwa online. Nataka nifanye mambo zangu kwa simu, ili kesho nikienda kwa ofisi, nimemaliza.
By the way, you have reminded me that issue of technology can actually be whereby you are so close to people who are far, but very far from people who are close to you. And there is one family that I really admired. We visited as a family, in my entire family. We visited them in Eldoret. And I noticed that something they have built just next to the door. There is a box. Once they reach the door, it's like, wow, wenyewe wanajipora. You find somebody looking for the phone. And all phones, unaona ya kwamba imechukuliwa imewekwa kwa hiyo box. Such that when they go to sit at the sitting, when they are sitting there, they're either watching the TV together or the movie together, or sometimes they even switch off and they simply chat. And that family, by the way, even right now, because they are my friends, I look at them now, the children are grown up. And I look at the way they are closely knit. Why? Because they are not taking work home. Yeah, so maybe that issue of technology can end up actually making you be distant to one another.
I wish to borrow that idea. I think I may want to borrow and discuss with my husband to see whether we can also take it seriously. Because we learn from people who have succeeded in these things. True. If we don't, it's only a fool who does not learn from others. For me, I think we all agree, technology. Like I think yesterday, we're traveling from Kitale, and by the time we were arriving in Nakuru, my husband actually complimented me and said, at least today we've had a road trip. Ask him, what do you mean? All the time, you're in the car, you're always on your phone. Yeah? So that today, at least I've seen you're not on my phone, you've chatted me all through, and I've really, I loved this particular trip. So it just kept me thinking, it means all along you've been suffering and you don't say. And it's good he communicated. Because I think there are times as a spouse you are really hurting inside. This man is in bed, or this wife is in bed and she's with their phone. And you're wondering, am I the wife or is it the phone that is the wife? And at times even you feel like taking that phone and putting it away because it's competing for your attention. But I think it's a conversation, just like Malim said, for us to accept and say we must get a solution so that nothing hinders us from being a friend to our spouse. Because for as long as it's not there, then we'll not be able to tackle the challenges that comes in marriage. Yeah.
You said use the word intentional.
I would also think that another hindrance to befriending your spouse is personal discipline. because and character. Because if you share information that is so crucial to your spouse, and again you get that after some days you hear the same story with your in-laws and with other people out there, I think next time you would be very, very careful to share such kind of information. So it end up ruining this befriending. You would see it better to speak and to communicate, also to share with an outsider rather than your spouse. So I think discipline is also very important, and character.
Stay tuned for the third part of the alphabet of marriage on next week's episode. To get the notes of today's lesson, visit www.mbcimedia.com/TMC. Catch the repeat of the Marriage Classroom every Tuesday at 10 p.m.